Hello and welcome to the Garden of the Black Roses. This is fanfiction. This is the next chapter of Yokai Tamer League. In case you haven't noticed the past few, there is a new piece that I'm working on. I don't know what the name of it is, so I've just called it Lady of Snow. It's a paint by numbers piece that I'm working on. So the koi one is finished. Just look at the last video in the koi playlist right at the very end if you want to see the whole thing finished. Like what it looks like finished. Anyway, Chapter 8. Ember spent the next few weeks in the infirmary, sleeping most of the time, unaware of the growing agitation in Darius and subsequently the silence and trepidation amongst the guild who could sense it. She was unaware of his frequent visits to the infirmary and often spending long periods sitting next to her, holding her hand, and giving her a little kiss on the forehead before going again. Vampira, on one of Ember's requests during the brief period she was awake, had done a few tests. Ember was fearful of what Wriggles may have done to her while she was unconscious, and wanted to know for certain. She was sure that Darius would want to know as well. She asked Vampira to tell him after telling her, so that she could manage how to handle his and her own emotions if her worst fears were real. "There's nothing," Vampira said softly to her, a smile playing on her lips. "Wriggles may have harmed you, but he didn't violate you." Ember let out a huge sigh of relief before a small voice chimed in, crying out to be near Darius. "So, how much longer do I have to stay in here?" "I can guess what will happen if I release you into his care." The Miko gave Ember a very cheeky grin. "If the stitches are stable enough today, I'll ask him to take you back to your room during one of his visits." "That's good to hear." Ember yawned. The medication's helping her heal, starting to draw her into a sleep again. "I hope to wake up in my own bed." Vampira sat at Ember's bedside and redressing the numerous wounds over her body. She expected Darius would be coming to visit soon and asked his usual question of, "When can I take Ember back to our room?" Today she had a positive answer for him. Gently she started to roll Ember over to access the large wound that stretched down the length of her back. A second pair of hands appeared, taking some of the weight from her. She looked up to find Darius with a concerned look on his face. "She'll be able to go back to your room today," Vampira said as she took the dressing down. "Her wounds have all been stable and will be able to stand a bit of—" She paused to glance up at him, catching a very light blush on his face. "Well, your instincts will be driving you to, you know." "Is that why you held her here so long?" he asked quietly. He could feel his face threatening to deepen the blush, and he let out a huff in response. "Of course," Vampira teased. She put the finishing touches on the bandage before helping him ease Ember back onto her back. "So you're welcome to take her back to your room whenever you like." She gave a small bow before leaving him with her in peace. Darius looked down at Ember. She looked peaceful in her sleep. One of her tails tapped the bed lightly in time to something. Letting out a sigh, he carefully picked her up, keeping in mind where her wounds were, and carried her out of the infirmary. His journey to their bedroom was slowed by League members coming over to talk to him and check on her. Each one expressed relief that Ember appeared to be comfortable and healing well. He was relieved when they finally reached their bedroom. Once inside, Darius eased Ember onto their bed and gently covered her up with the blanket. She hadn't stirred at all since his visit and her subsequent discharge from the infirmary into his care. His instinct was wreaking havoc in his head, telling him to wake her up, to pin her down and reclaim her, devour her. He shook his head hard. Ember needed her rest, no matter what his instinct wanted. Ember's health came first. It will help her heal, it insisted to him. She needs contact from you, just like you need it from her. Darius rolled his eyes and sat down on the bed, taking off his shoes and jacket. Trust me. I'm a part of you. Don't you trust yourself? That's not it, he sighed. I want to take things slowly where you are concerned. He got onto the bed and pulled Ember close to him. She rolled over and snuggled up to him, letting out a soft purr when she finally stopped moving. Ember isn't aware of her own instinct, so slow is best for now. Then you need skin-to-skin contact if you want to go slow. His instinct gave him images of holding hands or kissing, giving way to more suggestive images. Your unique instinct is linked to having that contact. You know what it is? Darius asked, as he carefully interlocked his fingers with Ember's that rested on his chest. I do, it replied in an almost smug tone. I can't tell you because you need her instinct active and working to be able to use it. He could tell that if it was alive, it would have been smiling at him. It suits both of you. Suits your personalities well. Darius looked down at the top of Ember's head thoughtfully. He wondered if their unique instinct would manifest as a skill, like takoyaki and yuki, or whether it was an additional sense, like kire and chocolate. He watched her ears flick and turn in her sleep, like as if she was listening to something. Suits our personalities, eh? He gently stroked her hair while he thought about what their unique instinct could be. Kire and Choki's unique instinct is sight. Kire has retrocognition, whereas Choki has precognition. Tako and Yuki can talk to each other telepathically. He watched her flick her ears again, and then her right one flicked like as if something was on it that she wanted to shake off. She groaned slightly and flipped over onto her back before scooting herself backwards, nuzzling into his side again. Her tails flicked up and rested across his thighs, one trailing up towards his chest. It wasn't often he got to watch her sleep, but when he did, her way of sleeping was strange and at times cute. He could feel her ears still moving under his chin. Ember, he asked softly. He didn't want to wake her, but he didn't want her to go back to sleep if she was already awake. He wrapped both arms around her tightly. Ember. Came the soft, almost muffled reply. I'm currently not awake. Please call back again later. Darius couldn't help himself. He started laughing and startled her awake in the process. She looked up at him, confused. He took one hold of her ears and gave it a very playful pinch, eliciting a little squeak from her before trying to tuck her head under his arm to protect her ears from more pinching. They're sensitive, you know. I know, he replied, before sitting up, taking away her little hiding spot for her ears. But I wanted to talk to you about something. Immediately, Ember shrunk back into the blankets, prompting him to pull her out again. I'm not angry at you, that you were avoiding me. He paused, seeing her disbelief. I'm frustrated that you did that, but I'm not angry. Then what do you want to talk about? She asked quietly. A little voice in her head cried out, It's me! It's about me! She shook her head vigorously. I won't go away. He smiled. That voice is your instinct, he said, as he listened to his own, advising him on what was happening to her. That's what I wanted to talk to you about. Ember tilted her head before leaning over and pulling out the scroll she found in Nether. This mentioned instincts as well. She handed it to him. You're my fourth spouse, but this is the first time I've heard of instincts, or even had a voice in my head. What are they? He quickly skimmed the scroll before responding to her. They are a manifestation of the marriage bond. When the pair have a healthy relationship, it develops and becomes another skill that only the pair can access. For example, Tako and Yuki are able to talk to each other telepathically. That is the unique skill they possess. Kirei and Choki have the sight. Kirei can see the past, and Choki can see the future. Then what is ours? Ember asked curiously. She had been oblivious to the extra skills the others possessed, and was now quite intrigued, since she shared a unique skill with him. Her eyes widened in realization. That skill Gabriel used. That was his unique skill with Jinx. Darius nodded. So the possibilities of what our skill will be. Well, he leaned in closer with a smile that made Ember shiver slightly with uncertainty. That's what we have to find out. The next day, Vampira came to check on Ember's wounds. She clicked her tongue disapprovingly at times, causing Ember to shiver under her touch. Darius had already gone to do some training for the day, so Ember had to bear the brunt of Vampira's disapproval on her own. If I had known he was going to be rough with you, I would have held you longer, Vampira said, poking the reddened areas around the stitches. Ember jumped and used her tails to swat at Vampira. He would have gotten more irritated with that, she replied with a smile. I was wondering... About your outfit? Vampira asked, redressing the wound on her back. We couldn't salvage it. Hime and Spring tried to repair it, but it was too far gone. The door clicked open, almost punctuating her sentence. I let Darius know about that earlier. Ember looked at the door and narrowed her eyes at her spouse. So, if you knew, where did you run off to? You don't smell like you've been training. She sniffed the air again. You smell like new fabric and flowers. Darius gave her a wry smile. I went to see Hime and Spring, if you must know. He turned and hung a coat hanger that had a black plastic covering over whatever was inside. I remembered you had been looking at an outfit a while back and wanted to get it eventually. He removed the cover. Ember's eyes widened. The outfit was the one she dreamed of having for such a long time. Long red kimono sleeves, tipped with a black design along the edge. Cherry blossoms dotted the length of the sleeves. The short skirt came to mid-thigh and gave the illusion of being loose and flowy. The tight black obi around the waist held in place with multiple tassel ties that hung down past the knees. Most of all, she wanted to reach out and touch the white fur collar. It looked so soft and inviting to the touch. You spoil me too much, you know, Ember said, unable to say anything else. Thank you. You spoil me in other ways, he replied with a wink. You're welcome. Chocolate shook her head. Kire had been cuddling her while she read from the books Yuki had given her. She felt off. Knowing what this was, she closed her eyes. She was in Darius and Ember's room. From the look of it, she was standing next to the bed. Part of her told her not to look down at the bed, but instead look at the door. After a while, the door opened, and in walked Sigurd, before coming to an abrupt halt. His face reddened in embarrassment. He quickly and quietly retreated back out the door. She let herself flow through the door to where Sigurd stood outside talking to Kire and herself. She noted he was purposefully keeping his wrists covered. Choco? Kire's voice brought her back out of her vision. You stopped turning the page. Something wrong? My precognition activated, she replied. She looked out the window. When it gets dark, we need to go to Darius and Ember's room, but not go in. Did you see something that involves them? Kire asked, looking concerned. No, she replied, placing a bookmark in the book and leaning back against him. We'll see Sig there. She shook her head, letting the last remnants of the fuzzy feeling to pass. I'm not sure for what reason we meet him, but I do know he will be there. Both of them could hear the dice of change starting to rattle. Will they land on a win? Or will it be snake eyes and doom for the guild? And that's it for this chapter. We're kind of moving, because Yokai Tamer was becoming monotonous and there wasn't really a lot to work with. I started to go into more creative side of the creative side of writing rather than actual game fanfiction-y type. So it's a mix. It's like based on the game, but not. But I suppose that's kind of what fanfiction is, that it's based on something that's already been created. Anyway, make sure to like, comment and subscribe. Let me know what you think. Let me know what you'd like to see me write about. Anyway, as always, let your imagination run wild. Bye for now.